My name is Victoria O'Connor. I am one of the women's and children's therapists at Genesis. And I'd like to introduce also my co-leader, Belinda.
Hello, everyone. I'm Belinda Cardwell, and I'm also a therapist at Genesis.
Yes, so we are excited to be offering this webinar to you guys. Our first client services webinar. We're going to be talking about some basics of trauma and helping you, come up with some ideas for coping with trauma symptoms as well. And also we'll be leading you through a practice coping skill, so leading you through a meditation. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And this, like I said, this is our first one. So hopefully this goes well and we don't have any tech issues, but we're really excited to be able to offer this. So before we get started, real quick, just want to highlight that this is for educational purposes. And also please consider your own situation and safety before maybe putting any of these ideas or things that we talk about into practice, and just make sure that you consider your own situation first. Let's see. Okay, so some safety things we want to talk about real quick. Please make sure that you're watching this in a safe place where only safe people can hear. Potentially consider wearing headphones so that maybe no one else can hear what we're talking about as well. And also maybe consider clearing your browser history when we're done watching this, so that, in case someone were to monitor your, history on your phone or your computer, it might be a good idea to just clear that out. And if you are watching this live, if you need to leave the live Zoom webinar quickly, just keep in mind that you do have to, click end or, leave meeting and end. So you have to click a couple of times. So just consider that if you do have to leave quickly for safety reasons. Okay, let's see. I don't know why it's not clicking to the next page. Let's see. Here we go, confidentiality. So please remember that we're trying to make sure everyone is, everyone's privacy and confidentiality is still kept with these webinars. So if you are watching this live, please do not use the chat feature on Zoom. If you do, your name will be seen, and this is being recorded, and so it will be there, for the recording later on YouTube. So please don't use the chat feature because your name would be seen. If you do have any questions, I'll let you know how you can ask those questions to us. And if you're watching this later on YouTube, please consider too that if you leave any comments on the YouTube video, that your name would be seen and your comment would be seen. So if you're not wanting, your information to be associated with this video, just maybe not comment. Okay. And then if you are in crisis, this video is not meant to be a replacement for crisis support. So please still call our crisis hotline if you are experiencing an emotional crisis, or if you do need help with emergency safety planning, or you're looking for emergency shelter. Our hotline number is right there. And also, you can still call our office if you want some information about counseling and advocacy support during this time. The number to inquire about counseling services is right there as well. And then we also have, I'll go to this one now. So we also have the National Domestic Violence Hotline as a resource for you as well. And also the National Suicide Crisis Hotline. So those are also good numbers to have in your phone just in case you were in crisis. If you are needing to safety plan, the National Domestic Violence Hotline actually does have a chat feature online. So if you weren't able to talk out loud, you could potentially chat with someone over at the National DV Hotline. That website is thehotline.org. And then, like I said, if you do have any questions about what we talk about today, and you don't want to use the chat feature, or don't want to leave a comment, we will have our contact information at the very end of these slides, and so you can definitely contact us by phone or email if you have any questions, or want to talk more about what we discuss on this video. If you are watching this on YouTube, also please keep in mind that we won't monitor or respond to any comments on the YouTube page. So again, the best way to contact us is through email or phone that we'll leave at the very end. Okay. Belinda, did I forget anything?
I think you've made a really good introduction. Let's get to our good coping skill information.
Okay, great. So like I said today, I really wanted to cover some basics of trauma and talk about how that relates to our current situation, give some suggestions for coping skills, and also let's practice a coping skill together. So, I've really found that a lot of people are wondering, why am I having such a hard time right now? I've heard from clients, maybe they're feeling really overwhelmed as well. And so I really wanted to talk about why this makes sense given our current circumstances. So in order to talk about that, we need to kind of discuss what is trauma. If you look up trauma online, the definition, or if you were to look this up in the dictionary or talk to other professionals, you might get kind of a wide definition of what trauma is. But kind of loosely defined, we can think of trauma as experience, the experience of events, or one event that is disturbing or overwhelming, potentially that there could be a threat to your life or someone else's life. And so that's kind of like a general definition of trauma. Some people talk about too that maybe just an adverse life experience, so maybe not something that's that big trauma. The more kind of life experiences you have that are some of those just more adverse, maybe not quite so big, the more of those that you have, the accumulation of that can actually lead to trauma symptoms as well. So regardless of how we're looking at trauma or how we're defining it, there are certain conditions that kind of we can use to think about trauma. So Dr. Bessel van der Kolk really explains this really well. He talks about these conditions of trauma. There's a lack of predictability, so not being able to predict what's going to happen. Immobility, so the person's not really able to move or take action. There's a loss of connection. This like kind of numbing out or spacing out. So we'll talk a little bit more about what that means, but not really being fully present. In trauma, there's a loss of sense of time, and so not really having a clear beginning or end or kind of an orientation to time. There's a loss of safety. Definitely that's a big part of trauma. So the fear and the danger present, and then also a loss of sense of purpose. So looking at this list, definitely we know that domestic violence falls into all these categories. So right, in domestic violence, there is a lack of predictability. If you remember that cycle of violence where, it's circling and there's a pattern, yes, but that tension building phase, then into the violent episode, there's no way to predict when that's going to happen or what that's going to look like. And then also, in that cycle, there's the honeymoon phase as well. And that's really unpredictable. Survivors of domestic violence don't know when that honeymoon phase is going to end or what that cycle, how fast is it going to cycle through or what that's even going to look like. So definitely there's a lack of predictability. Immobility. So also this is kind of that idea of not feeling like you have the ability to take action or to have some sort of control over the situation. And this is definitely a part of domestic violence as well. So, feeling like maybe she's feeling like she's stuck in her home or feeling like she can't, take actions to get out of the situation. So that sense of immobility is there with our survivors as well. Definitely loss of connection, right? Abusive partners use isolation tactics to isolate their partners from supportive people. Maybe also she's physically isolated, but it could also be emotional isolation too. And so she's losing those connections with supportive people and maybe not feeling like she can reach out for help. Numbing out or spacing out. So like I said, really not fully being present, kind of almost like feeling frozen. So a lot of our clients describe that this feels like their experiences while they're living in domestic violence, that they're not really fully themselves. They're not really fully like living how they would usually live. Loss of sense of time. There's like not really a clear end or beginning. Sometimes our survivors of domestic violence talk about, having trouble remembering things or having trouble like creating a sense of a timeline of events. And that can be due to a lot of different things. And we'll talk about how that's a trauma symptom in a second. But definitely that loss of sense of time, not really having a sense of, when did this begin? When did this end? And there's not really a time orientation. Of course, loss of safety. This is, again, a huge hallmark of domestic violence. And so our survivors of domestic violence, they're not feeling safe in their home. There's a danger, a threat in their lives, constantly. And so definitely feeling that loss of safety. Abusive partners maybe are making threats, and so they're not feeling safe. Or maybe there's been, physical abuse or sexual abuse or violence where they're not feeling physically safe and also emotionally safe. Potentially, they're not feeling emotionally safe in their homes or in their relationships either. And then finally, loss of sense of purpose, the experiences of domestic violence that can lead survivors to really feel like they have lost their sense of purpose in life. Maybe they've had, certain ideas of what their relationship was going to be like or what their life was going to be like. And then that experience of domestic violence can take that away. So definitely we can see how domestic violence falls into these categories. But also looking at this list, I really want to highlight that this is this current time in this global pandemic too. Like definitely these conditions apply to the current COVID-19 global pandemic. So, for sure there's a lack of predictability. We don't know when we're going to be able to kind of go back into our ordinary daily lives. Especially in the beginning, things were changing a lot. And so there wasn't a sense of, well, when is this event going to be able to happen? Or can I really go to the park or the grocery store? Definitely immobility, we're all kind of feeling stuck at home, a lot of us. And so feeling like you can't take action or you can't control the situation. Or you really just can't move, right? We can't get out of our house. We can't go out into our daily lives. And so definitely that sense of immobility is present. Loss of connection for sure. Because of social distancing guidelines, everybody is just isolated right now. If you live alone, maybe you're not seeing people as much as you would in the past. If you're not going to work, you're not seeing those people anymore either. And even though, yes, we do have the ability to have some virtual connections, it's just, really different. And so that can definitely take a toll on us as well. Numbing out or spacing out, some people right now might feel really numb, really kind of like not fully present, like just kind of going along with the motions or not really fully engaging in life because of what's going on. Definitely there's a loss of sense of time. I know sometimes I think like, oh my gosh, what day of the week is it? Really not having a clear sense of like our daily routines, again, like not knowing when maybe things are going to happen. So definitely that loss of sense of time. Loss of safety too, there's a lot of fear with the coronavirus and, just potentially even feeling like it's not safe to go out into public. Some folks might be really worried about loved ones who might be more at risk for catching the COVID-19 virus. And so there's definitely this loss of safety and this fear present during this time. And loss of sense of purpose, maybe some people have lost jobs, maybe their roles have changed or, things that they used to do that gave them a lot of purpose, they're not able to do anymore because of, having to be at home or because of adjustments that people have had to make because of this time. And so definitely there can be a loss of sense of purpose for some people too. So let's talk about then what are some common symptoms of trauma. So I like this handout. I tend to give this in groups. If you ever come to a group at Genesis, you might see this handout. So I like that this highlights a lot of these common symptoms that we see as common reactions to trauma. And again, at the center of that is because of the trauma. So we talk about post-traumatic stress symptoms in kind of 4 different categories. So one of those categories is intrusive memories. So looking at this list, of course, intrusive memories would fall into here. And that's, those memories of stressful or traumatic events that come in when you don't want them to. That could definitely be nightmares or potentially flashbacks, feeling like you're living in that traumatic moment or it's, happening again. Potentially this could also be, showing up as body pains whenever you think about a situation or you have an intrusive memory. Potentially that could be like body sensations as well. So someone might experience chronic pain or headaches, for example. So definitely those would fall into that intrusive memory category. Another category is like changes in your mood and feelings and tending to have more negative feelings and emotions and beliefs. And so looking at this list, that's definitely that shame. That's a really common feeling to see in survivors of trauma. And maybe that's also, due to some negative beliefs they might have. For example, like, I caused this, or this is my fault. And so there can be a lot of those feelings of self-blame and shame. Definitely feeling emotionally overwhelmed would fall into this category. Depression, irritability, those are really common feelings to experience after trauma. Having a loss of interest in important things, or maybe a loss of interest in things that you used to enjoy. Kind of numbing out. Again, not really fully feeling very strongly, just having really, not strong feelings, just kind of numbness. Feelings of hopelessness, that's also really common. Another category of trauma symptoms is changes in your arousal. And so this could be, on one end, like very hyper aroused, so where you're feeling very anxious, or on the other end, more hypo aroused, which is a little bit more of that frozen or numbness. So looking at this list, definitely, panic attacks would be more of that hyper arousal. Being so anxious and so overwhelmed that you're almost having a panic attack, like you have trouble breathing maybe, or you can't calm down. Dissociation, this would fall into that other end, kind of that more hypo arousal. And so dissociation means kind of like numbing, or kind of almost like you're frozen in a moment, not being fully present, because it would be too overwhelming to fully feel your experiences and your emotions in that moment. And this is actually something our bodies do to help protect us in a traumatic moment. Sometimes it's better and it's safer for us to not really fully be present, or to not really fully be experiencing the present moment. And so sometimes we dissociate in a traumatic moment. And then what happens is you start dissociating to in other parts of your life that aren't necessarily in the trauma. So you might dissociate at work and not really fully be present at work or around your family. Let's see, insomnia, so having trouble sleeping, definitely that's a really common symptom that we hear about, having trouble falling asleep or staying asleep. Having trouble concentrating or focusing, that's another really common symptom. Hypervigilance. So hypervigilance is that feeling of being on edge, kind of always scanning for danger. And so that's another really common symptom too after trauma, that you're really like always looking out for the next thing, right? Always trying to be prepared and always trying to protect yourself. And so that hypervigilance is definitely an experience after trauma, as well as being easily startled. And so you might have, be kind of jumpy, be startled more easily than you used to be after trauma. And then finally, another category of post-traumatic stress symptoms is avoidance. And this one makes sense. Nobody wants to think about a traumatic thing that happened or a scary thing that happened. Nobody wants to talk about it. And so this avoidance makes sense. And sometimes that can actually come out as more maybe some unhealthy coping behaviors. Someone's trying to avoid so much about thinking about something that maybe they turn to substance use. And then, that substance use over time, maybe that becomes a substance abuse problem. Or maybe, one way that someone is able to cope and to, kind of avoid thinking about traumatic things is to focus on their eating. And then that, ends up becoming the development of an eating disorder. And so that's why you see on this list eating disorder, substance abuse, or potentially self-destructive behaviors that could happen, as a way that people are trying to avoid thinking about things, or, thinking about or avoiding people or places as well. So these are all really common symptoms of trauma, and definitely something that we see our clients at Genesis experience. Belinda, is there anything else that you want to add, or anything that we missed?
Just a couple things. I think you've done a really good job of breaking it down into categories, but I just wanted everyone to be aware that you may experience some of these or something that's similar. You're not going to experience all of them. I know this is a pretty overwhelming list, but just keep that in mind, and also that the symptoms can be physical, emotional, and mental as you experience them. And being aware of these is what will help you manage your response to both trauma and the symptoms. And also, you may be delayed in experience some of these symptoms. So it might not happen right away, but just to be aware of what your experience will really help you in your recovery.
Mm-hmm. Yes, really great points. You could experience these, months later, maybe even years later. And as we're seeing now, experiences of trauma can get re-triggered. And so you might be having these symptoms, maybe it's been some time. So I really want to highlight that this time during the global pandemic might be increasing some trauma symptoms for some of our survivors of domestic violence. And this time can be really triggering. So, maybe you've been in counseling for a while, you thought you were doing a really great job and getting better. And then after this global pandemic, all of a sudden you're having a really hard time again. And that makes sense, right? If you've experienced that loss of safety before, if you've experienced that isolation before, and now this is happening again, the current experiences can trigger those experiences from the past and can trigger some of these symptoms again. Or maybe, you've been experiencing these trauma symptoms, or you're living in this time of domestic violence on top of this global pandemic. These times can also exacerbate your trauma symptoms right now. And so, definitely I wanted to highlight how if you're having a hard time right now, that's really normal because of our current circumstances. And really, it makes sense because of what we're all going through right now. So with that in mind, we wanted to talk about some ways to help cope with some trauma symptoms. So we have a list here that is, maybe we'll see. So we have a list here just giving some highlights, some examples, and we're going to go over a lot of examples in future webinars. So please keep tuning in and watching. We're going to break down a lot of these different types. We'll do more examples. We'll lead you guys through some more. So this is just kind of a brief kind of overview of some different ways to cope with trauma symptoms. So definitely one way could be distraction. Potentially, if you are experiencing some anxiety or maybe some racing thoughts, being able to distract yourself, give your mind a break, that can be helpful. So maybe that's watching TV or movies, playing games, puzzles, reading a book, maybe playing with the kids. A lot of people have some really good distraction coping skills, and you're probably already doing something that helps distract and helps give yourself a break. Connection. So definitely, I think in this time right now, as I said, because we're, socially distanced and isolated, being able to have that connection is really important right now. And so, talking regularly with friends, family, or coworkers as best you can be really helpful right now during this time of isolation. Also, because we talked about this time there's a lack of predictability. So one way to cope with that is to really create structure for yourself. So maybe that means making schedules for yourself, following routines as best you can, and maybe also like giving yourself breaks too in the day as well. So, maybe deciding I'm going to work for this amount of time, then I'm going to take a break, a scheduled break, and then I'm going to work for this amount of time. And, you know, following that routine can be helpful to give yourself that sense of predictability. Movement is a really good coping skill. So, you know, as we were saying, traumatic experiences can lead to that sense of immobility, like there's not anything you can do, or there's not a sense of that you can take action. And so being able to move is one way to cope with that. But also movement can also help, you know, calm your body and to help regulate yourself when you are feeling anxious or overwhelmed. So even if it's just walking, if you walk around the block, or, you know, even walking up and down the hallway, you know, that walking is actually a way that your brain can help calm and regulate in a stressful moment. Maybe doing some yoga or some other exercise as you can to help get your body moving and to help get that energy out. Mindfulness, you know, this is a way that can help with kind of that numbing sensations, or if you're feeling more hyper aroused, kind of more anxious, or the opposite, if you're feeling more numb or more frozen. Some mindfulness activities can help you come back to a place where you're able to experience things a little bit more present focused. And so that could be meditations, relaxation exercises, you know, participating in self-reflection activities. Maybe that could be journaling, for example, and writing down, you know, what's going on in your head or just what you're feeling. So that's something we're going to practice today. I'll lead you guys through a meditation and relaxation exercise. Another coping skill is grounding techniques. So this is, you know, grounding is anything that helps you stay connected to the present moment. So if you were experiencing a lot of anxiety or a lot of elevated symptoms, like maybe like your heart was racing, or kind of like physical sensations too, grounding is a way to kind of help calm and help pull you back into the present moment. So this could be like using your 5 senses, noticing what you see, what you hear, what you smell or taste, or like textures around you too. And like I said, we'll do a future webinar where we talk a lot more in depth about grounding and different, you know, other coping skills. Self-care, showing yourself some kindness and compassion, you know, even if it's just small things in small ways. You know, maybe eating your favorite meal, for example, or, you know, showing yourself some of that love in small ways, that, you know, helping yourself remember that you deserve it and that you're worth being taken care of. And then finally, safety planning. So being able to use a safety plan, whether that's also, you know, getting professional help with that safety plan, or, you know, also following your instincts, and being able to take those steps that can actually help you feel more empowered and strong, which can help with decreasing some of those trauma symptoms potentially. And so, you know, definitely safety planning is something that we do at Genesis. And if you're needing help with safety planning, you can always call our hotline, like I said, or, you know, talk to a counselor. And especially too, during this time, that also means finding ways that you can keep yourself and your family safe. And so, you know, following professional guidelines, following CDC guidelines, if you are going out, you know, you can do things to help make sure that you're safe and to help increase that safety during this time in this global pandemic. And so all of those different ways are ways that we can cope with these experiences of trauma and these conditions of trauma. Belinda, did you want to add anything?
Just want to add briefly that, you know, coping skills work for in some situations and not for others. So you might want to have a variety of skills that you practice. And also coping skills will work for some people and not for other. So again, it's good to kind of know what works for you versus what might work for someone that you know. And we will look at coping skills in a much more in depth in next week's seminar.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm going to lead you guys now through a meditation. So before we get started, I want to just say that meditation can feel really weird at first or uncomfortable. So if this is your first time doing a meditation, that's really normal and natural for it to feel unnatural. And practice helps. So I'd really encourage you to keep practicing these types of guided meditations. Potentially looking up on YouTube. There could be, some free guided meditations, or there's different apps on the phones that are specifically geared towards providing guided meditations for people. So definitely practice helps, and practice makes it feel more natural. If anything distracts you during this practice, that is okay, and that's normal, and just gently return and just, kind of notice that distraction and gently return back to the practice. So yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. So I want you to kind of sit comfortably, maybe uncross your legs if your legs are crossed, and just kind of sit back into a chair or a couch or wherever you are. You could even lay down if you wanted to, just however you're going to feel comfortable. So I'll give you guys a second to, start getting comfortable, to take a deep breath, maybe stretch a bit to help you relax. Maybe move your shoulders, whatever's going to help you get relaxed. And start focusing on your breathing as you close your eyes. So take a long, slow breath into your belly. Exhale slowly and completely. Again, drop your shoulders as you inhale and exhale. And continue natural breathing as you relax into your chair and feel yourself being supported by it. Anytime during this meditation, allow yourself to move or stretch as you feel the urge to help you relax. We will begin a full body relaxation now, starting at the top of your head, working down. Feel the scalp on your head becoming loose and relaxing. And feel your face beginning to relax now. Your forehead is relaxing, and all the small muscles around your eyes are becoming still. Your jaw is relaxed. Maybe your mouth is slightly open. Now notice your neck is beginning to relax as the large muscles of your neck and throat are becoming warm and heavy. Let go of any tension in your neck. Now notice your shoulders. Let go of any tension in your shoulders. Feel your shoulders become warm and heavy as the tension drops away. Continue to breathe as you feel your chest and your back relax now, as the muscles there become warm and heavy with each exhale. Notice your arms. Notice how they might feel heavy as they're starting to relax. And your internal organs are all relaxing. Feel the warmth of relaxation move down your legs as your thighs become warm and heavy. Your knees, calves, ankles, and feet all becoming warm, heavy, and relaxed. Notice your breathing, a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And check your body now for any leftover tension. Allow the relaxation to flow into that part of you. Let go of any tension. Now allow your mind to relax. Let go of any thoughts for now. Imagine a blank screen with nothing on it. Notice, is it white or black? A picture slowly begins to form on the screen of a cool, welcoming meadow. There is a sign naming this meadow, Self-Nurturing Meadow. You are drawn to it as it feels safe and comfortable to you. Feel yourself moving effortlessly into the meadow. You can feel a cool breeze on your skin. Notice, what fragrances do you smell? What sounds do you hear? As you look around, you see a figure on the horizon. Your intuition tells you this is a safe, nurturing presence. You are drawn toward this presence. As you get closer, you recognize this presence as a part of you. It is your own nurturing self waiting to welcome you. As you get closer, you notice she is opening her arms to you, and you naturally fall into her embrace. The two of you sit for a while in silence. You allow yourself to be comforted and nurtured by your own nurturing self. Your nurturing self gives you a box that contains a key to your self-care. Inside the box is an object, a picture, or words that illustrate to you what you and your nurturing self both know is the essential to your self-care. Open the box and look at its contents. What is it that is essential to your self-care? You look up at your nurturing self and you smile at each other knowingly. You promise your nurturing self that you will treasure what is in the box. As you begin to close your box, she jumps into it for safekeeping. You clutch the box and prepare to move away from the meadow back to your everyday life. The meadow slowly fades away as you come back to the blank screen in your mind. Are you there? Is the screen white or black? And as you're ready, start taking some deep breaths and focusing on your breathing again. Taking a deep breath in and out. And when you are ready, you can open your eyes. And again, take a deep breath. Maybe take a stretch. Do what you need to do to come back into your everyday life. So I hope that helps you feel relaxed, helps you find that way to take care of yourself and to give you some relaxation during this time. Again, you can use this video, over and over if you want. If you liked the first half, you could even play back the relaxation, going from your head to your toes. You can even stop it after that if you liked the relaxation part most. But definitely you can use this as a way to help you in your coping and your self-care during this time. Okay, so here is our contact information. So if you have any questions about anything we talked about today, please feel free to call or email both Belinda and I, and we'd be happy to talk to you about some of the things we talked about or give you some more tips for coping skills. And like I said, we'll be doing these every week, and so please keep tuning in and keep watching for some more support and some more information about coping skills. Anything else, Belinda, to add?
I just want to say thank you for joining us, and I hope you found this information helpful, and please don't hesitate to reach out.
Great. Yes. Thank you all. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day.
Bye-bye.